You a few ideas. This is intended to be Legal Technology 101, or the basics of legal technology. So some ideas to try. How about starting with the technology that we already have in front of us, like Microsoft Word or Excel? Many lawyers I have found are not good at using this basic technology, and it ends up costing them time and money. Let me give you an example. This gentleman, Casey Flaherty, he was formerly an in-house counsel at Kia Motors. And what he did is he wanted to test his outside lawyers to see whether they were doing their work efficiently. He gave them a variety of tasks using Microsoft Word and then measured how long it took them to complete the tasks. Tasks that should have taken about an hour and that took Casey only 30 minutes were taking his outside counsel 5 hours to complete using basic law practice technology. Let me give you an example of the kinds of inefficiencies that can take place. So here's an agreement. So imagine you have a transaction, and now imagine that you just wanted to add one section to this agreement. Let's say you wanted, instead of this being part 2, you want to add a new part 2. Somebody who is not very good with technology and maybe doesn't have a staff to do it, or maybe it is after hours, after the workday, and staff is not available to help, this is very common, might try to do it themselves. And here's what they might do. They might add a space, insert the language, they would add part 2, they would highlight the text, they would change the text so that it's uppercase, then they would change the header so that it's in bold font, then they would add a space, put the new language of the provision in the appropriate font and in the appropriate size. But there's a problem now because all of the other subsequent sections need to be renumbered, and so somebody might go through that and renumber it. Which is obviously taking a lot of time, and if it's a very long document, that's going to take a considerable amount of time. But now what about cross-references in a document, which are fairly common? You would have to go through and do that manually. You get the idea. It's a very time-consuming process. If you don't know how to use Word, if you don't know how to use styles, if you don't know how to use embedded cross-references, you're going to waste a lot of time. And I know lawyers who do this. And when you bill by the hour, you have no incentive to learn to do this better. Is there a better way? Absolutely. All you would need to do is add the new text. You go into styles at the top of the screen here and use the appropriate style for this section. It automatically populates the appropriate font and size. And also, if these are automated cross-references, all you need to do is highlight the text and say update, and everything is updated automatically. The difference between these two situations is knowing how to use Microsoft Word and not. So sometimes when we talk about legal innovation and technology, it's easy to get lost in artificial intelligence and very sophisticated solutions. Don't get me wrong, those are important and are going to become increasingly important in the future. But we have in front of us an opportunity to use the very technology that we already have every day and use it more effectively to the benefit of our clients. And so another, something else to try, slightly more sophisticated, but not really, not that hard to use. Automated document assembly. Legal documents, many of us, when we are in practice, encounter the same kinds of documents all the time, whether it's in litigation or transactional work. And there might be just a few differences from one document to the next. The old-fashioned way, I guess old-fashioned within the last 20 years, would be to open up the document, save it as a new document, do a find and replace, and create the document that way and just make some minor changes. Automated document assembly, and this is just one example of a company that does this. There are many, many others, including right here in Chile, that do this kind of work. You can and then be able to pose questions to the user of the document that allows them to populate that document much more quickly, much more efficiently. So automated document assembly is not very hard to use. Those solutions are out there. That's a good additional next step to take. Another possibility is just to update your knowledge. So law schools are increasingly teaching in this area. I know that the university here in Valparaiso is also doing the legal project management, LLM, which has been created, is part of that. Learning the importance of process improvement and project management will open your minds to new ways of doing things. Process improvement is simply the idea, much like I just showed you in Microsoft Word. It's a process. When we provide a service to a client, there are various pieces, various processes along their way, and there are ways to improve those processes and make them more efficient, like using styles in Word. That's an example of a different process for creating that information. Let me take it and put it in a different context to make the point. This gentleman here, he's very interesting. So I don't suppose any of you would recognize him. Very few people do. So at one point, he became the hot dog eating champion of the world by eating more hot dogs in 12 minutes than any human being alive. So the world record before Mr. Kobayashi broke the record, he was eating 25 hot dogs in 12 minutes. There was a competition where Takiro Kobayashi ate 50 hot dogs in 12 minutes, doubling the world record, and he subsequently broke that several times. Now, why am I raising the question of a hot dog eater in the context of legal services? The reason is process improvement. He is nothing special. He is not superhuman in his ability to swallow hot dogs. What he did was come up with a new process. What he did, prior to Kobayashi coming along, the way people competed in the competition is they would take a hot dog in a bun and they would eat the hot dog in a bun together, which is the way most of us eat hot dogs. They just did it the old-fashioned way. What Kobayashi did, because the rules didn't prevent it, is he took the hot dog out of the bun with one hand, was breaking it in half, and at the same time using the other hand to take the bun, put it into a ball, and you were allowed to have water. He dipped the bun into the water to make it easier to chew and swallow. And through that process improvement, he was able to double his efficiency with hot dog eating. I will suggest to you that there are these kinds of process improvements available to all of you, whether it's using Microsoft Word more effectively, whether it's using automated document assembly. The idea is to find out what your processes are and be able to improve on them. That's why these legal project management and process improvement courses can be so valuable. So, what's the alternative? Why do I believe that this is so essential? Because I think if we don't embrace these changes, we risk going the way of so many other industries that are being disrupted by technology today. Some of you may remember this company, and the way that they deliver their services is going to be very different. So if you're in a small firm, I don't think you can continue to do business in the way that I was in that opening slide. I think you're going to have to adapt, you're going to have to adopt new technology. It might be that you're of the service that you offer. You'll still be able to do that, but you'll have some of the more routine aspects of the job automated. In many ways, I actually think that the future for lawyers could be much more interesting and fulfilling than the one we have today. When I started off in practice, I spent a lot of time with document review, going page by page in ways that caused me to go and want to become a professor instead of practicing law. I didn't enjoy it. I think the future, technology is going to allow you to practice at the top of your license in a way that enables you to provide that very custom level service, but knowing when that kind of service is necessary and allowing the more routine aspects of it to be delivered in another way. So I don't view the future as eliminating the need for lawyers, but it will require lawyers to focus in on what they are specifically trained for and understand how to use technology to deliver the services that can be done in a more routine way. But it requires that understanding. So it's a future of lawyers that's going to be very different from the one we know today.
but there will still be lawyers. That's why I'm happy with the question mark at the title of that book. As to the second question about the technology that we're seeing in larger markets where the investment might be warranted, I think some of the technology, at least, can be transported into other legal environments that are smaller. So the one example that comes most immediately to mind is automated legal document assembly. Now those are tools that are readily created and used in any kind of legal environment, any kind of legal system with different laws, different languages. So the technology is available to do that. I also think that some of the technology that's been used to review documents, massive amounts of documents. In the United States, we have a system of civil procedure that involves discovery and going through massive amounts of documents. I know that's not the case here, but you do have situations where you have to review massive amounts of information and documents, say for a transaction involving large companies that might require the review of significant amounts of information. That can now be done in a much more automated way, and I think that technology can be imported. So that's a long way of saying that I do think some kinds of technology can be used across different legal systems and legal markets, even if they vary in size. Some, granted, will not, and some may take longer to move from a larger market to a smaller one. But I do think many of the technologies that I'm seeing emerge in the United States and elsewhere in the world are readily adaptable to other languages and other legal systems.